occupation force in the West Bank, and they met together. At the beginning, with a lot of suspicion. In the place that we worked together in Talitakumi, there were several meetings. The Palestinians were sure that the Israelis are from the security service. The Israelis were very suspicious, checked their car after each meeting to check if there is no bomb that was hiding in the car. But later on, they developed the vision and the goals of Combatant for Peace, and you can find it in our website and our Facebook. All is written there.
We have a small video clip just to introduce the combatants as a movement. Isham, is it possible? So this gives you, a brief impression on what Combatants for Peace does. But there's a lot more activities than this what we saw. Yaniv, can you briefly say what kind of activities we saw? Arts and culture. There's more, I think.
Yes, you saw now the protest in Tel Aviv Square during the last war, in the last summer. Suleiman Khatib from Ramallah came to the square, and we were the first organization in Israel and Palestine that demonstrate during the war against the war. So this is important to say. Now the activities itself, we are doing of course protest and demonstration, but we have also other activity. We are operating 5 regional groups. Each group is operating in a twin city. We are all from the same group, Tel Aviv Tulkarem. I live in Tel Aviv, Iyad live in Tulkarem, Rima used to live in Tel Aviv. We have another group in Tel Aviv Nablus, Jerusalem El Quds, Jerusalem Bethlehem, and Be'er Sheva Hebron, Halil. And in each group we found injustices in ground. Our Palestinian friend, the Palestinian side, found place that need our help, and we are doing the theater-based process. This is the link to former theater in Rotterdam. We use Theater of the Oppressed. We are doing solidarity activities, helping farmers against settlers, etc. And we are doing house meeting activities. One of the fascinating projects right now, we just started. We are meeting with young Israeli just before their mandatory military services, and we are doing them basically what we are doing to you right now. They meet Palestinian. We get a special permit for the Palestinian to enter Israeli high schools and other places around, and Israeli, and they hear our story. And for most of them, it's the first time in their life that they are seeing Palestinian. Like when we come to Palestine, for most of the Palestinians, it's probably the first time that they see Israeli that is not a settler or a soldier. Since the separation wall, the separation between the people is growing. So many kind of activity, and once again, you can go to our website, to our Facebook, to see our ongoing activity.
You already mentioned the link between format and Combatants for Peace is theater. We work with Theater of the Oppressed in Rotterdam with marginalized groups in the neighborhood. We use the theater to give a voice to those who are made silently in society. And we use the theater to raise their voice and to go in dialogue about the problems they face. You can think on people with learning disabilities, people with psychiatric problems, who also are part of neighborhoods. Very important to include them, so it's a very inclusive model. We've been doing this tour. We had the visit of you guys, and we had this amazing opportunity to do a one-day workshop with 12 Palestinians, 12 Israeli, and 6 Dutch people, amongst them Maluki, Tamar, and me. We made a short documentary about that also. I would like to invite you to watch that a little bit. So the theatrical context will come more clear for you in this encounter we had. You saw we were working in the workshop space and the final bit on where she was explaining about how settlements are actually spreading all over Palestinian territories. It's really impressive to be in a country where there are A, B and C zones, and where some people cannot use certain roads and others are seeing images, big blackboards where they say forbidden for Israeli people because there is danger to your lives. It is a very impressive thing. Now, what fascinates me always is if you've been part of the violent circle, you've all been part of the violent circle. And then there is this moment in your life where there is this personal transformation where you realize that violence isn't the solution. But in order to know who you are, I think we need first to know who you were before. So I would like to ask you to speak, to tell us, how did you become a combatant for peace member? Iyad, can I start with you? I'm gonna give you the mic.
And I have a really good voice. Do you hear me? Amazing.
Yeah.
اسمي إياد عمري 31 سنة.
My name is Iyad. I'm 31 years old.
بسكن في مخيم للاجئين.
And I live in a refugee camp.
طبعا هذا المخيم أنا وعائلتي لا نملك فيه شيء وكل اللاجئين الموجودين فيه لا يملكوا فيه شيء مش إلنا.
In refugee camps all over the world, you don't own the land that you build your house on it. It's not ours.
تربيت في عائلة أغلبيتهم سجنوا لسنين طويلة في سجون الاحتلال بسبب مقاومتهم للاحتلال.
I was raised in a family that most of its members they were arrested by the occupation army.
أنا في الانتفاضة الأولى كنت صغير ما كنت أفهم إشي.
In the first intifada I was young and I didn't really understand what's going on around me.
في الانتفاضة الثانية كنت يعني كبرت وعيت وعرفت انه في شيء اسمه احتلال اسرائيلي محتل ارضي وماخذ ارضي.
In the second intifada I was a young youth and I started to understand that there is occupation around me and people trying to take my lands.
فصرت افكر زي اي فلسطيني انه انا لازم اعمل شيء عشان اقاوم الاحتلال وعشان ارضي.
So I started to think like every Palestinian that I need to take an action and to end the occupation in order to save my land.
فصرت اساعد اللي بيقاوموا الاحتلال لان انا كنت لسه صغير شوي عمري كان 17 سنة.
So I started to help people in the armed resistance and I was helping them while I was 16 years old. 17 years old.
فاعتقلت لمدة 6 شهور بسبب مساعدتي للمقاومين.
And because I was their assistant, so I was arrested for 7 months in the Israeli jails.
وأنا داخل السجن بالعكس إشي ما ردعني وصرت أفكر أنه أنا اللي لازم أعمل مش أنا لازم أساعد لا اللي بعمله لازم أنا أعمل.
And while I spent this time in the jails, I got convinced that I need to do by myself and not only to be an assistant for the people that they fight.
كانت قناعاتي أنه كل الخيارات بالنسبة لي إشي عادي. يعني كل الوسائل اللي أنا لازم أعملها إشي عادي.
And also I got to this understand that all the ways are legitimate in order to fight the occupation.
فصرت أبحث في أي طريقة على أساس أنه أنا أعمل إشي فوصلت بطريقة أو أخرى إلى لمنظمة حزب الله.
So I started to look for ways in order to help me to fight the occupation and in one way or another I got in contact with the Hezbollah organization in Lebanon.
فكنا نتلقى الأموال لشراء سلاح.
So we started to receive money in order to buy guns and weapons.
اشترينا السلاح وعملنا في دائرة العنف، دخلنا دائرة العنف اللي هم احنا بالنسبة لنا مقاومة الاحتلال.
So I started to work and to become member of the armed violent resistance against the occupation.
تم اعتقالي بعدها لمدة 5 سنوات.
I was after that I was arrested for 5 years by the Israelis.
فصارت عدة أحداث بتخصني وأنا داخل السجن.
And so many things happened outside of the jail while I was inside.
منها استشهاد ابن عمي لي.
One of that it was important for me the Shahid, the freedom Shahid, martyr, and he was my cousin.
برضو تم اعتقال أخوي وحكم عليه 15 سنة فما زال لحد هسه في السجن.
And also my younger brother, he was arrested and put into 15 years of in the jails, and he's still there until today.
فهاي المرحلة خلتني يعني شوي انه لازم افكر بحالي او افكر مع حالي او باهلي.
And all these occasions that happened brought me to this point where I need to start about my family and about my own life.
روحت اخر سنة 2007 من السجن.
In 2007 I was released.
سمعت عن المنظمة هاي، طبعا كان انا بالنسبة لي يعني شيء مستحيل.
I heard about the organization Combatants for Peace, and for me it was something impossible to be part of it.
لأزيد من مرة حاول معي أني بس أروح وأسمع وأشوف وأنا كنت رافض.
So many times they approached me and they asked me to join the meetings, but I said no way, I'm not gonna do it.
فرحت يعني بالآخر رحت ومرة يعني لأزيد من 4-5 مرات أسمع وأشوف، فاكتشفت لأنه زي ما في فلسطينيين بدهم السلام في برضو إسرائيليين بدهم السلام.
So after that I convinced to go just to hear, and it took me 4 until 5 meetings where I went there, and I understood through the first 5 meetings that there are Israelis, Jewish, that they really want peace.
اشتركت معهم في المجموعة، وكان بالنسبة لي أنه هذا إشي مش احتمال أكيد راح يوقف يعني الدم بيننا أو راح أنقذ أنا إيش اللي كنت خايف عليه من أهلي أو من إخوتي.
So I became member of one of the groups, and I became member of one of the groups, and I got to this understanding that what we're doing, it's in order to keep our kids' future safe.
وأنا من سنة تقريبا 2008 بعمل مع هاي المؤسسة.
And since 2008 I'm part and working with this organization.
هاي قصة باختصار.
This is my short story.
Thank you. Yes, of course.
I want to add something really. You love my.
No,
okay.
no. I don't like it.
Okay.
But I use it.
You love it. I just want to add something small that when we saw the movie before from your visit, Iyad, he told me, wow, where is that? Where is that? Where is that? And you were like, some of the photos in the video, it was inside of Jerusalem and the way from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem from
Yes.
the airport. And I explained to Iyad that this is the new bridge in Jerusalem, this is the new train in Jerusalem, things that Iyad never saw from ever in his life, and maybe I hope one day it will happen.
Can I ask you another question,
But it's
Iyad? You told us your brother has 15 years in jail. He's still in jail?
أخوك 15 سنة بالسجن بعده بالسجن.
له 9 سنوات باقي له كمان 6 سنين.
He spent 9 years and 6 years left.
There's 6 years left. In those 9 years, how many times were you able to visit him?
9 سنوات كم مرة أنت قدرت تزوره؟
مرة.
One time.
Why is that?
ليش؟
ممنوع من إسرائيل.
It's not allowed by the Israelis because the jails of the Palestinians, it's inside of Israel.
So actually when your family members are in prison, you cannot
فلما
Hardly
عرفت
physical.
بالسجن بدك تشرح لي انه هن بيعرفوش بالضبط كيف الاشياء بتشتغل.
ليش بصير انه هاي السجون داخل حدود اسرائيل؟
These jails, Israeli prisons, it's inside of the Israelis. It's on the Israeli side.
مثلا اخوي في سجن في صحراء النقب.
My brother, he's in the Negev, south of Israel, present in the desert.
في هناك جدار وفي معابر.
And in order to get there, you need to pass the borders and the separation wall.
طبعا بتسيطر عليها اسرائيل.
And it's all controlled by Israelis.
اذا انا بدي ازور او اهلي بدهم يزوروا ما بقدر افوت الا بتصريح من اسرائيل وعن طريق الصليب الاحمر.
So if I want to visit my brother or my family wants to visit, you need to get a special permit from the Israelis and from the Red Cross organization.
Later on, there will be possibilities of asking questions because I can see people being puzzled and wanting to ask. But before we do that, I would like to hear also Yanni's story, because there's two stories. There's the Palestinian story. There is the Israeli story. And what I learned in Combatants for Peace is that you have to keep the balance. Very important inside of the movement, the balance.
I will try to.
Oh, you will do it with that. Okay.
So I'm Yaniv, I'm 39 years old. I'm Israeli. I was raised and grew up in Ofakim, which is a development town in the south, in the desert, in the south of Israel. The town was established, such towns were established during the 50s and 60s to absorb the immigrants, mostly from Arab countries. My parents immigrated from Tunisia. Most of the... Hello. We can exchange recipes after. So my parents immigrated from Tunisia, and most of my neighbors in my town are from Morocco, Algeria, Iraq, Iran, Jews of course. When they immigrated, my father immigrated when he was 19 years old. He knew only few Hebrew from the prayer back in Tunisia, but he spoke Arabic and French. So one of his first job was after his army service was to serve in the occupation of Gaza. He served as in the civil administration officer because he spoke Arabic, both Arabic and Hebrew. First as a translator, and later on as the one that's responsible for the working permission of the people of Gaza to work in Israel. One of my memory of my childhood that one day he came back from Gaza. They live really close to Gaza, in Israeli territory, but very close to Gaza, like 30 minutes drive, even less. He came back with the car smashed with stones, and I asked him what happened, and then over my childhood, many Palestinians from Gaza came to my house in Israel. It was allowed. And I understood from my father that this is people that work with him, they are collaborated with the Israeli, he didn't call it occupations of course, with the Israeli. Their people not always like them, but I have to understand that it's a zero-sum game. Maybe they are like a friends, but it's either us or them. And until these days, my father is a right-wing, extreme, not extreme, but right-wing and hardline Zionist. So he came back from his work, his car was smashed, and ever since the security service in Israel gave him a plate for the car, a Gazian plate, a different plate in the occupied territory, and different plate in Israel. And me, as a child, very small child, every morning I replaced his place in the car to put like Gaza, and when he came back from work, Israeli plate. Other memories from the childhood, I will skip up my childhood. When I was 12 years old, I decided, I asked my parents to go to study in boarding school in Jerusalem. The reason I did it because in this development town in the desert for the North African Jews, the situation is really bad. Unemployment, the education system is really bad. And if you want to have a good chances to get education later on, you should go to a boarding school. I went to Jerusalem. It was 1987, the first Intifada. I remember the fear in the street, the fear and the hatred. I love a soccer team that is really fascist, Jerusalem soccer team. people in the crowd yell, dead to the Arab, dead to the Arab. For me, I remember I was right wing, but it was very difficult to yell it because I knew all this Arab from my father work. I also remember the drives in the buses of Jerusalem, when you are scared to be that the bus will explode. And we had one day in the boarding school to go out to travel in Jerusalem, and we all were scared. I remember that everyone looked for Arab faces if some Arab go to the bus, and then I realized that people also look at me because I also look like Arab. So at the beginning, like you were the suspected person to go to the bus, and then you sit and look for other Arab look person. So it was kind of I think that this complexity I didn't realize, I didn't understood it, but it trickled down to my consciousness. In one of my vacations, summer vacation, I went back to my parents. In the summer we spent with the parents, to Ofakim, and my father organized me to work in construction building in this development time, to build many buildings for the new immigrants from Russia, Jewish immigrants that came from Russia. And in my team, we were 9 people from Gaza, Palestinian, with working permit, and myself. It was very important and meaningful experience for me. It was first time to very close with Palestinians that are not collaborators with the regime, with the occupation, but just work there. One of my friends there, his name was Hareb, war in Arabic, and he explained me that he was born in 1967. A war, I knew that it's a 6-day war, the victory of Israel occupying all this territory, and for him it was a disaster, the Naksa for the Palestinian, and it was also, I still was a right wing in my opinion, but I realized that there are other people that suffer and experience our history differently. Then I joined the Israeli army, I served in tanks, I was combatant, I was a commander. In my reserve duty, after the 3 years, we also do reserves of 1 month every year. I served in the occupied territory. I had not easy experiences to be the occupier, to be a soldier, to oppress Palestinians, to be in checkpoint. Still, I saw that as an Israeli that consider myself humanist, I will treat the Palestinian differently. But you cannot do that. This is what I realized. You can try to prevent other people from doing really bad things, but the very fact that you are occupier in the West Bank was not possible for me. But I didn't refuse to go to this reserve. It was I consider it as something really extreme. Later on, I went to do my graduate studies in the United States, and I studied Christian Zionists, evangelical Protestants that loved Israel. You have many of them in the Netherlands as well. They view the establishment of Israel as the prophecies of the Bible and the sign that Jesus is going to come back. That's the reason they support the Israeli state. At the beginning, I loved them. I studied them, but they support it was the time of the Hezbollah and Israel war, between Hezbollah in Lebanon and Israel in the north, and they supported Israel where all the world were criticized. But later on, when I did my research, I realized that my Zionism, my love to Israel, is very different from them, for their view, and I start asking myself questions about my political views, about my religion, my religious identity. When I came back to Israel, my first research was in Palestinian village, Bilaim, very famous one. It was about the involvement of international tourists in the local struggle. The only one in this setting in Bilaim, the international tourists, the Israeli anarchists, and the locals, I felt connected and welcomed me, only the Palestinian villager. The anarchists didn't accept me, I don't know, for many reasons, but this is not the place to elaborate. The international tourists also were very suspicious, but the local people in Berlin welcomed me. And then when I came back to Tel Aviv, I looked for group. I realized that I cannot live anymore in the Israeli society as an Israeli without doing something to end the occupation. and I wanted to fight for the liberation of the Palestinians, in which I will feel comfortable. And I found Combatants for Peace. It's the only group of binational group that work together to end the occupation in non-violent way. This is our first principle, and do it binationally. And I, like Iyad, I think that what we are doing is not important only for today to end the occupation, but also for our children, our Palestinian children and Israeli children, that in the future, inshallah, there will be a peace. They will be able to look at the past and to understand that some people in the past worked together non-violently to end the situation. And that's all.
Thank you. Yaniv, thank you for sharing your story.
بس في إشي بدي أضيفه لا أنا ولا ينيف حكينا فيه.
I just want to add one more thing that not me and Normin or Yaniv spoke about it.
دول أوروبا وأمريكا بالتحديد الدعم والأموال اللي هي بتوديها لإسرائيل.
The European countries and especially America, they send the USA, they send a lot of money to Israel.
هاي أموال كلها بتروح لهدم البيوت لقتل الأطفال ولقتل الناس.
This money of support, it goes all to destroying houses, killing people and killing kids.
احنا كشعب فلسطيني احنا يعني بنطلب من دول اوروبا وخاصة امريكا.
We as Palestinians, we ask the Europeans and especially the USA.
هو لازم يكون واجب عليهم وقف الدعم لإسرائيل.
And it's a part of your obligation to stop the financial support and the support to Israel.
مقاطعة دولة إسرائيل. ينيف دكاء. ولازم أخرى كمان قاطع دولة إسرائيل. Translation ريما.
I ask you not to translate. We didn't agree about this.
No, wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
Iyad,
لحظة بس اقعد شوي
You have freedom of speech. Sit down.
Freedom of speech, but we are organization and we have principles that we agree upon.
We have a...
No. We have some principles.
أنت ترجمي ريما translation.
So
we have some agreements.
I just want
and
to
I suggest that we will wrap up
1 minute. I
right
would
now.
just want to translate,
Rima,
but he's say okay. I will translate, although I don't agree with him. لحظة, although I don't agree with him, but he's saying.
Freeze!
You don't
Thank you. This was a scene.
Madre mía. Vaya crack.
This is what we call invisible theater. The public doesn't know that we are playing theater. At least some of you, I think, didn't know. Maybe some saw it because we're not the best actors in the world. But anyway,
No, they were quite good.
Okay, great, thank you. This invisible theater is one of the tools we use to raise awareness. So all the theatrical tools are to raise awareness on certain issues. This, what we just saw, is maybe theater, but I know it's also part of the internal discussion of the movement. So it's theater and it's not theater. Because of course there are Palestinians inside of the movement, they say we have to boycott Israel, this is our policy. There are Israelis agreeing with that, there are Israelis against it. So always this discussion, we accept inside of the movement the differences we have, the different political statements, and I think that is a very good thing. I'm coming to you, Rima.
It's important to say that it's a written and organized scene. It's not something that we don't. We have our arguments and we we showed it to you as boycotting Israel or not boycotting Israel. The Palestinian voice, that if you don't have Arabic speakers in the crowd, they won't understand. If I don't translate and the media won't bring the voice of the Palestinians, no one will hear this voice. because no one is, we have the power as English speakers to deliver the message. And I heard something in the crowd of the Arabic speaker, I think, that they said something. So it was really amazing and different having.
Could you
Arabic
translate what
speakers.
you heard?
Yes. I heard something, but I'm not sure what I heard. But
Okay.
I heard something. Huh?
We said he has the right to speak,
Yeah.
you know? Even you also have the right to speak.
Yes. But I took this position of not delivering the Palestinian voice at the
Yes.
moment, and it's something also that we need also to look at it. So.
Yeah. Something a lot of people in Europe don't know, I don't know about you, is that also inside of Israel there are Arabic people living and they have a permit of staying there, and one of them is Rima. You are Palestinian living in Israel. Could you emphasize on your position inside of Israel? And yeah.
So, hello everyone. Now I'm taking the rest of not translating. I should say that Iyad, allow me to say it, but Iyad, because he spent a lot of years in the Israeli jails, so he actually speaks Hebrew as well. So now Yaniv, he will translate to Hebrew, because, yeah. So this is the reality when your prisoner, he's speaking a different language, you need to speak his language as well. So my name is Rima, I'm 29 years old. I live in a city called, I was born in a city called Al-Fahim. It's on the borders with, it's on the borders between Israel and Palestine. Historically, it was our land, it was a gift from the Jordanians to the Israelis, because the Jordanians, they ruled the West Bank for until '67, and they decided that they want to give the areas where we live as a gift to the Israelis. So I live in the triangle area that half of it was given to the Israelis and half of it it's Palestinian. My grandfather, his name is Muhammad, and he was born in Megiddo, which is Lajon, but we call it Lajon, but now it's called Megiddo. Megiddo is the Hebrew name of the Palestinian displaced village of Lajon, and they ran away, but he was a kid, so his parents couldn't run away with him far away in the war, and then they went to be located in Al-Fahim, which is the biggest, closest village to Lajon, Megiddo today. But his other member of the family, they went to save the lands and to run away to Taibe, which is Palestine today, and to Jordan, to also have asylum seek over there. So I grew up in a family where we always knew that we have family all over the world. We have family in 3 different countries. It's Israel, Palestine, and Jordan, with the same family name, with the same roots of the family. I was grown up in a family that they really nationalist, and they lied to me until, I call it lying, until the age of 17, because until the age of 17 we studied in private schools that our parents supported it financially, and that's why we had only the Palestinian flag on the school. We didn't learn anything about the Jewish Israeli history. We didn't learn anything about what happened in the Holocaust. We have a gap of history knowledge. We studied what they asked us, the parents wanted us to know. So it was kind of brainwashing, because once, like we were going to have dinner or visit family, and I didn't know that we're actually in Israel. I was going through ways of roads to Palestine, and all the time I asked my father, what is this flag? And he's saying, it's the flag of the enemies of Israel. And why the flag is here? He said, it will go down soon. So we actually lived in Israel, but I didn't know that I live in Israel until the age of 17, which is really late age, because they closed our school, and then I was supposed to go to study in the governmental schools. And the first time I remember seeing the Israeli flag, on the school, and I was really shocked. And then I started to have the trust because they didn't want me to study in Israeli universities because they know how it's hard to be Arab inside of the Israeli system. And the Israeli Jewish system, because I'm Arab, I'm Muslim, it's not easy to be part of something that you don't belong to it. And then, hello, and then in the university I met Tunisian tripartite. Yeah, from Tripoli, Libya in English. So I met a girl from Libya and I started to talk to her in Arabic. And she was like, "Are you talking to me in Arab?" And I said, "You don't speak Arabic." And she said, "No, I'm Jewish." And then it was a minute of thinking like, oh my God, we look the same. Like you look Arab, you're Arab, why you don't, you're in ignorance of you being Arab as a Jew. And then I started to study history by myself, and studying history and studying about the Holocaust. I don't compare between the Holocaust and between the Nakba, the disaster of the Palestinians, but it was a lot of similarity between the stories of my grandfather, of my parents, of my family, and a lot of similarity, the same empathy I had toward the stories of the Holocaust and the people and what happened over there. And since then I took a decision that I really want to deliver the story of what happened, how the brain of the Jewish people works and why they're afraid all the time, and how it's the education in the Jewish school system that makes you afraid from the age of 5, once you're in school, the first grade, because this is what happened to me and this is what's happening until today. The educational system, it's really brainwash us since we're really, really kids. I joined Combatants for Peace since the beginning, and I'm not a fighter. I'm not a combatant. I didn't join the Israeli army because the Israeli army, they don't take Arabs to serve in the Israeli army because they don't trust us, because we're not gonna kill our brothers in the Arab areas. So we're kind of in a place where 25% of Israel as Arabs living there, and we do have conflicts inside of us. Many people, and also my parents, they don't like the idea that I'm working with Israelis and Palestinians, because they look at the Palestinians as cheaters and they look at the Israelis as enemy. So it's like, and the Palestinians themselves, they look at me when I go to the West Bank as a Israeli, and then I need to say, no, my car is Israeli, I'm not Israeli. And when I'm in Israel, they look at me as Palestinian Arab, Muslim girl, and then I say, I'm not only Arab, I'm also me, and I'm also Israeli. So we're kind of in the middle of all the situation. And I will end by saying that I'm really proud of being part of Combatants for Peace. I believe that we're making the change on the ground by our activities, and I think that the one who will bring peace, it will be us, Palestinians living in Israel, because we speak the language, we know the culture in both sides, and until now we're the bridge that separate and connect, and actually people walk on you and no one cares about you. So this is our situation right now, but one day we will bring the change. So it's a little bit about myself.
Rima, you were talking about actions on the ground.
Yes.
Actions on the ground is everything about Combatants for Peace.
Yeah.
We have a small video on an action you made near Shufa. And I was in Shufa, and Shufa is a village divided in two parts. Many of family members live on one side and other family members will live on the other. In between it there is a roadblock. And also when we were there, we were not able to cross that checkpoint when the Palestinians were asking, we want to go and drink tea with our family on the other side of the village. They said, return to your own site. The roadblock is there. We can ask questions why it is there, because it's not even on a road to protect the settlement. It's just in the middle of those two villages. When I get out of the bus, it's one of my biggest historical achievements. And I went to the soldier and I said, "Why can we not go and drink tea?" And he looked at me and I said, "I don't speak English." And then he said, and I said, "But we want to go drink tea." And then he looked in my eyes and I kept the eye contact and he said, "You have 20 minutes to drink tea." And then we could cross. So that was one of my
Because you're
achievements.
European. So
Because
you have
I'm
the
European.
chance to,
And then he came into the bus, remember Miluki with his rifle, and he was seeing all these Europeans and he said, "Okay, go, 20
And he's
minutes."
probably only 17 years old.
And this was a very young boy being scared.
Yeah.
For God's sake, the man was scared. Let's see how they use theater in the
And so the struggle there actually succeeded. They removed the checkpoint for 4 years, and only in the last war, in the last summer, they actually when we were there in a meeting. We are meeting until today. It's a symbolic place where we meet under the olive tree of Shufa, because both Palestinians from Tulkarem and the Israeli can meet there. And they put the checkpoint again, so it was removed for 4 years, and this is the occupation. This is the randomity of the occupation. And then the army, from some reason that we don't understand, decided to put another checkpoint, and now Iyad cannot drive with his car if you want to go to Nablus, for example, or to go back to his home from this particular way.
I think it's time for you to come up with your questions, because I see a lot of people wanting to share maybe what they want to know. Don't be shy.
Hi. My name is Yip. I was in Palestine from October until January. I was volunteer. My question is, I think me as an outsider from the Netherlands coming there, you have this tendency to think like, oh yeah, the Israelis and Palestinians, they have to work together and understand each other better and this dialogue, this kind of thing. When I was in Palestine, what I noticed was a lot of Palestinians, their first reaction was no, normalization. And spending 3 months there, I understood this actually.
The concept of normalization, you mean?
Yeah. Because for them, I think living, with Israelis is not a problem. They say the obstruction to peace is the Israeli occupation, the settlements, the colonization. That has to stop before we can,
Collaborate.
Yes.
Yes.
Just want to translate.
Yes.
And so yeah, I'm wondering what your reaction is to this, and also when Palestinians tell this to you, because I think they do. Yeah, and also within Israel, how did people react to your participation in that?
Okay, so that's two questions. The first one I think is for Iyad.
Well, both actually.
Okay, both.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think Iyad, because he's Palestinian and he knows
Yeah.
why combatants for peace for him is not normalization. So that's an interesting question, I think. The concept normalization is hard to explain in one sentence, but it means I'm going to give it a try. Normalization is that everything stays the same. After the actions of these people watching this play, they go home to their safe environment in Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, wherever they come from, and the Palestinians, they go back to their shit.
Yeah, and in a way it's also like condoning what is,
Yeah.
happening.
Again, could you
That
repeat?
it's condoning?
Condoning?
Yeah, like that you are
It's
kind of accepting
accepting.
the the situation, and people are forgetting what it's really about, and that is that Israel should stop what it's doing.
Maybe to frame the question for Iyad.
عشان تصير لك السؤال.
Why normalization is a big issue, and of course it's very important.
And what
Why
is-
for you combatants for peace is not normalization,
هو مشكلة كثير كبيرة، بس ليش لإلك مقاتلين لأجل السلام هي مش تطبيع؟
and how do your friends see that who are not member of combatants
كيف
for peace?
أصحابك أو عائلتك أو الناس اللي بتتعامل معهم بيشوفوا هذا الإشي اللي هن مش جزء من مقاتلين لأجل السلام؟
أول شيء مصطلح التطبيع هذا مصطلح أصلا خلق في فلسطين.
The
مش
first
بدولة تانية
thing
هنا.
that the phrase of normalization, it was invented in Palestine.
بالنسبة لي أنا المقاتلون مش تطبيع لعدة أمور.
There are, for me, combatants for peace, it's not normalization, تطبيع, for a few reasons.
إحنا بنمشي على برنامج سياسي معين
We're working in a political program,
وعلى مبادئ وأهداف للمنظمة باتفاق الطرفين
and we have مبادئ,
أو أهداف مطارات.
principles that it's written by both sides.
والعمل اللي بيننا هو عمل واضح للجميع وجو شفتي في الفيديو هو عمل مقاومة الاحتلال.
And the work that we're doing and maybe you saw it in the videos, that we're doing actions against the occupation.
المشكلة بتصير انه انا لما اشتغل معاه انه مثلا انا اطلع مثلا جروب اطفال مثلا فلسطينية واسرائيلية مثلا انا ما بعمل ضد احتلال انا بس بطلع مثلا رحل او عشان يتعرفوا على بعض هاي بتصير يعني مش شغل ضمن برنامج معين.
The thing that it could reverse all our actions into normalization or any action to normalization. It's like taking a bus full of kids into meeting other kids, Jewish kids, which is not something that it's not a direct action against the occupation, which makes this action a normalization.
اللي جمعنا مع بعض انا والاسرائيلي انه هو اسرائيلي يؤمن بالسلام واقامة دولتين فلسطينية واسرائيلية وانا اؤمن بهذا الحكي نفس الهدف.
What makes us working together, and it's not a normalization action, that both the Palestinians and the Israelis, they believe in the freedom and of the Palestinians and in ending the occupation.
هذا الفرق بين الكومباتنت فور بيس والمجموعات الثانية.
This is the difference between Combatants for Peace and so many different organizations that they're working under the title of peace.
So it's, yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
And your friends, how do they see that?
أصحابك كيف بيشوفوا هذا الإشي؟
أصحابه طبعا زي ما في برضو في الشارع الإسرائيلي ناس بدها السلام وناس مع الفكرة في ناس برضو ضد. في الشارع الفلسطيني عندنا بكون الوضع لسه أصعب.
Like so many people in both sides, in the Israelis and in the Palestinians, they don't believe in working together at all. And in our Palestinians, I know it from close. It's really, really hard.
في من أصحابي ومن عائلتي معي وفي برضو مش معي.
I have members of my family and friends that they support me, and there are also that they don't.
الوضع اللي بعيشه الشاب الفلسطيني مش سهل انك تغير تفكيره.
The reality of the life of youth and Palestinian, it's really hard that you cannot have the chance to change his mind because he's in the hard life.
Thank you. And if you want to react on it?
I think we are one of the few organizations that actually got permission from the Palestinian Authority to continue working together, and with the stamps, you know, Combatant for Peace, Muqatalin Ajil Salam, is not normalization, not tatbia. My lackmus test for the fact that we are not doing normalization, although that I believe that in the future we will be, the relationship will be normalized, is that Israeli-like dialogue groups. You can ask Israeli, come to meet Palestinian, play soccer together, it will be good. And this is the problem of normalization. The harmony is dangerous. Because when you meet a Palestinian to drink a coffee and to eat a hummus or baklawa and the kids play soccer, you can go back to your safe home and feel good with yourself. And this good sense will stop you from doing an action. But if you, most of Israeli will not come to our activities or join Combatants for Peace, because this is not very safe and easy and romantic, so to speak. This is to do action against the occupation. So for me, I know that unfortunately, because we are a minority right now, I know that what we are doing is not normalization. We are fighting the occupation, binationally, non-violently.
Yeah.
Well, you all three kind of spoke about the whole educational system, especially you, about that you're being brainwashed, also in Israel, also in Palestine. But my question is more towards the Israeli youth. They are being brainwashed in the whole educational system. I know because I've met a lot of Israelis while I was on holidays, and I tried to understand how they were thinking. I couldn't, sorry, but I just couldn't. But I was just wondering, how is this educational part that, I mean, I think I'm more understanding towards the Israeli people, that how they are occupying and how the historical context is an influence of how Palestinian reacts to their occupation. How is this educational part and this historical context part of your project? How do you involve it to recruit Israeli people to be more understanding of what they are doing is wrong?
It's a great question. And I think that the problem, to begin with, is not the understanding that we are occupying. The problem in the Israeli education system that I was raised in, and now it's changing slowly, is the non-recognition of the Palestinian narrative. Okay, like the same problem in the Palestinian school system, the non-recognition of the Israeli Zionist narrative. And what we try to do, for example, 2 weeks ago I went to school with one of our founding members, Bassam Aramin. We are going to schools to tell them about the Palestinian narrative. And
You're allowed to do that in Israeli parties.
it depends. It's not an easy task, but this is one of our projects. We are doing it at school. We are doing it in 1 year before joining the army. We meet these young people in the age of 18 or 17, just before the army. We found the way to do the cracks in the wall. It's very important, and myself, I'm a teacher, I'm a lecturer in the university, and I also changed my curriculum. And I found a way to teach Israeli students in university about the Palestinian narrative. Of course, it's not easy. I wouldn't call it brainwash, because the difference between brainwash and education is very one-sided. You know, it's telling only your narrative, you know. The Independence Day for us, it's the Nakba for them. And it's so you just have to find a way to enter this very complicated issue to the curriculum.
Other question maybe. Is this an answer to your question?
Yeah.
Yes, I want to ask, in Israel, there's the first mosque ever built, Mosque Masjid al-Haram, and I wanted to ask if still people there are Muslims and go to the mosque, to the
Aqsa.
Imam al-Sharif, yeah, Aqsa.
No. The first mosque is Masjid al-Haram.
In Khalil.
I don't know which place
مسجد الحرام
exactly is.
الحرم الإبراهيمي الخليل المسجد الأقصى القدس.
So your question is this mosque still open, and are
Yes,
people...
and are there Muslims still there, or who?
Yes, Al-Haram, from what we know, it's like Al-Haram, maybe the names, maybe we're talking about different things. Al-Haram, it's in Mecca, and this is what you mean in Mecca, or you mean the first mosque in Khalil?
Yes, the first mosque.
In Khalil.
حرم الإبراهيمي.
Al-Haram al-Ibrahim.
No, we talk about the golden, the Haram
Ah.
Sharif.
It's not the first.
The golden,
No, that's not the first mosque.
The first Qibla?
Al-Aqsa.
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 أقصى المسجد
The first Qibla that the Muslims pray to. Ah.
Yes. So we're talking about the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, no?
Khalil.
Yes, that's what you mean.
So we have two mosques, very, very important in Palestine. You have the first Qibla, where the Muslims around the world first prayed to before Mecca.
Yes, that's the
This
one I
one.
mean, yes.
So this one it's in Jerusalem, and it's called Al-Aqsa, and it's the first Qibla, where the first place that Muslims pray to before Mecca, before Al-Kaaba in Saudi. It's in Jerusalem, and all the conflict of our nation, it's about Jerusalem, because Jerusalem, the Palestinians, they wanted the capital city, and the Israelis, they wanted the capital city. Palestinians, Iyad, you cannot go to pray there because it's in Israel, so you need a special permit in order to go there. But Israelis, they do special things, like special permits for people above the age of 50 to go to pray. Muslims that they live in Israel, they could go to pray all the time. But we don't want to forget that the old city of Jerusalem, it's surrounded by walls. And in these walls you have gates. And in every gate you have soldiers standing in the gates in order to enter to the mosque. You have the gates, and over there you have special visit hours if you're not Muslim. And if you want to enter in the pray time, you need to prove that you're Muslim.
Only Muslim can enter.
Yes.
Yeah.
I cannot.
So for example, he could go in the visiting hours only. Last year, or this year, like we have wars every year, so I'm really confused, but someone of the Jewish Zionist group, that they want to destroy the mosque of Al-Aqsa and to build the temple of the Jewish. They go there with security, they go there as groups in order to pray inside of the squares of the mosque, although it's forbidden by law, because Muslims, they cannot go to the Jewish crying wall,
Welling wall.
Wailing wall, and this year or last year he was targeted.
Assassinated.
Yes, they tried to kill him. And also the second Intifada all started because Sharon, he entered to the mosque with a lot of soldiers. So it's a really conflict zone, it's a really boiling place. You have a lot of separation inside of the old city. You have a lot of rich Jewish people around the world buying houses in the old city of Jerusalem in order to make it more and more Jewish place, and the Jewish owners. And you have also, correct me if you don't agree with me, but
I will.
yes, but when tourists, they come and you buy the book of tourism of Israel-Palestine, it's all the tourist roads in the old city of Jerusalem, which is Christian, Muslim and Jewish historical city. You have all, it's guide that you go only to Jewish places, only to Jewish markets. So also the Palestinians in the old city of Jerusalem, they're really poor. They pay a lot of taxes in order to stay there. They're not that educated. The education system, it's really low because it's a Palestinian education system in Israeli territory. So it's a really hard place. But Muslims could go sometimes when they want to punish Muslims, like the last war in Gaza last year. They close it. They say no praying. No, you cannot enter. So it's a place where it's the good card to play on the nerves of the nation.
I will just add one thing that bothered me, because she called the guy or the people that come to the temple mosque Zionists. They are not Zionists. They are Messianic.
Yeah.
They are Messianic Jews. Zionism is actually political and not religious ideology. So the Messianic Jews, they want to rebuild the temple. What we got from the British that controlled Jerusalem, when they just entered Jerusalem after the Ottoman Empire collapsed, they understood the importance of managing this area very, very carefully, because the mosque is just very close to the temple, to the Wailing Wall. So we got, and there was many, actually the first conflict started in 1929 between Muslim and Jews in this area. During Yom Kippur, the most religious holiday for Jews, the Jews changed the status quo in the area. They removed one. There is a status quo since the Ottoman Empire. Everything is managed in the whole city. Even, you know, there is a ladder in one of the churches that they don't remove it in the last 150 years. It's still there. And if they have to remove it, they bring it back. So what we got from the Ottoman and from the British is the status quo. Now Israel tried, and since '67 they do, try to change the reality in terms of the, what's going on in this very sensitive area, which is indeed, you know, most of the conflict is, not most of it, but a lot of it resemble in this area, about Jews trying to take over more land, more territories, because we think that this is part of our history, which it is, but on the expense.
Ask about Jerusalem, but actually there is more conflicts that we have than the mosque. Because if the Islamic nation really care about the mosque, the first Qibla of the Islam, we were released so many years. But no one cares about it.
There was a discussion today. I followed the Arabic, every 4 years, I think, or a few years, they come together. And they discussed this year because also this issue of normalization.
Of coming to Israel.
Yeah, so Arabs are now agreeing like, well, yes, we will start visiting Israel because they avoided it, because they want to go to the Aqsa, because they avoided it because they were afraid of normalization.
But you could come through Jordan or...
Yeah, so they were avoiding it, and now there are some fatwas that it's okay to go and visit the place because it's...
And the mosque is not managed by Israel, it's managed by Jordan. It's a waqf. It's a waqf by Jordan, and also we got it from the British.
Yeah, but I want to add that in Jerusalem, for example, we have David's king, kingdom. I'm sure most of you, they don't know about it, but they're digging in areas of the Arab side of East Jerusalem. They're digging after villages, under villages, looking for King David kingdom.
Yeah,
about
cracks in the wall.
Yes, and you have cracks in the wall inside of the houses. You have cracks in the houses. They shake in the night. And today you have a destroying order for over than 48 houses, which contains more than 3,000 people, Palestinian, living in it, because they want to build the garden of David. They want to destroy houses and to do the garden of King David, Allah yarhamu, God save him. So it's really and part of the theater that we do as political action, and that we do theater, it's targeted to only to Jewish Hebrew speakers people. We do it in Hebrew, in Israeli theaters, and we tell the story of Silwan, for example, which is an action that it's a direct action in order to change the minds of people, because they think they're coming to see a show, but then we bring the conflict into the theater itself. So this is another way of the theater.
This is a real play that Rima is one of its stars.
It's a famous play, and I heard it's going to come to. I heard they're trying to get it into the Netherlands.
Ah yes, we're coming to the Netherlands.
They're coming to the Netherlands next year, so you will see it. The Peacock of Silwan.
Yeah.
Don't forget it. My last question.
Yeah.
My last question.
From the people.
From myself. Inside the movement, there are also conflicts. The conflict of Israel-Palestine is also inside of the movement, you could say. How do you deal with that? On a very practical level.
على صعيد
How do you get consensus on what you do and what you don't do?
نعمل ايش نعمل وايش ما نعملش بداخل الصراعات الموجودة تبعتنا بالمنظمة نفسها.
ممكن ترجم؟
طبعا.
هو يقول كيف هذا الصراع يمكن الإنسان يلعب فيه دور إيجابي لحل إيجاد السلام.
بدك تحكي بالهولندي؟
بالعربي.
اوكي.
بالعربي.
كمان
أنا أؤمن بالسلام.
I believe in peace.
وأؤمن بأن الفن المسرح والموسيقى ستلعب دور مهم في هذا المسلسل السلامي.
And I believe that arts in all its kind, music or theater, is going to take a real, a strong role in bringing peace.
وهو السلاح الوحيد يعني حل الصراع ما بين إسرائيل والفلسطينيين.
And it's the only solution in order to end the conflict between Israel and Palestine.
Shukran. Still my question. How do you, because there are conflicts inside the movement, I saw them and I felt them. How do you deal with them on a very practical way? How do you come to your consensus?
Now this is the conflict, who's going to answer that?
I would just say that the organization has two heads. It's Israeli and Palestinian. All the groups, for example, I didn't tell you, we're coming from Tel Aviv Tulkarem group. Nowadays, I am the Israeli coordinator of the group, and Iyad is the Palestinian coordinator of the Tulkarem group. And this model in Tel Aviv Tulkarem is replicated in other groups and it is replicated in the organization. We have a managerial management, Israeli management, Palestinian management, Israeli CEO, Palestinian CEO, Israeli general coordinator, Palestinian general coordinator. And we meet each other. In fact, sometimes we have, sometimes we try to stay united, like the Israeli voice and the Palestinian voice. But in fact, I can tell you a secret, sometimes we have weird coalition between us, because we think, I can think similarly like Iyad, and don't agree with Rima, or with Chen, with other Israeli, and we will try to promote our agenda. But what I noticed is that for the Palestinian, it's very important most of the time to stay, despite the disagreement in their side, to stay in one voice, much more than to the Israeli side.
Iyad, you want to reflect on that?
كله طبعا اكيد يعني فيش مجموعه ما فيش فيها خلافات.
There is no group in the world with no conflicts inside of it.
بس بالاخر يعني بنتفاهم على شيء معين.
But we get into an agreement in the end.
اللي بيخلينا نتفاهم على شيء معين انه هدفنا واحد هو انهاء الاحتلال.
What is really guiding us in order to get into settlement and agreement is that we are working in order to end the occupation.
لانه هدفه وهدفي نفس الشيء.
Because our goal is the same.
الهدف بيتغلب على كل الخلافات.
And the goals will end all the conflicts. I want to add something. Yeah, I always hear it from the Israelis that the Israelis they want to end the occupation, but we always say that the ones who's gonna really end the occupation, it's Israelis with Palestinians. But once the Israeli is I lost my English. The Israeli, he needs to follow the Palestinian in order to end the occupation. Because in the end of the day, the Palestinians, he go back to the west to live in the refugee camp, and the Israeli, he go back to fly from Tel Aviv airport to the beach, which is Iyad didn't see in his life, in the Israeli side, and they go to live in peace. And that's why the Israelis, they're always taking, we do have arguments, for example, in which signs we want to have in the demonstration. But in the end of the day, yes, the Palestinians, they choose what they want to be, because it's in the end of this day, it's their lands that we're working on it, actually. We don't work together in Israel because they're not allowed to get into Israel. So, and we meet as one nation groups. Like the Israelis, we do work alone in Israel, and we have our conflicts inside of us, and we work on it. And also the Palestinians, they work alone and meeting and discussing, and then we join together. So it's not only working together, it's also working separate and together and separate all the time, which makes you more objective of the difference